new era.
Greetings, so if this may concern, Christian Eglar here, back with another series review. And in today's series review, I'm going to be reviewing the first two episodes of The Rings of Power. The series stars Morfydd Clark, Markella Kavanagh, Daniel Wayman, Ishmael Cruz Cordova, Robert Armameo, and Nazaim Boniadi. And the series is set thousands of years before the events that take place in The Lord of the Rings, and even in The Hobbit. So this should be around the Second Age, maybe towards the end of the Second Age. Elves that we know to look a certain age appear to be way younger than they are, and we know elves age very slowly, and they're thousands of years old. To see two characters that we are familiar with, Elrond and Galadriel, return in this series is really cool. We know they have to go through a lot in order to become those types of characters that we know them to be in The Lord of the Rings. I always saw Elrond and Galadriel as like overseers, the ones that don't really get involved with combat and just guide and advise the heroes or any travelers rather than fight the enemy. Yes, I know we saw Elrond in The Last Alliance of Men, but I always saw Galadriel as someone who doesn't need to prove themselves in combat. Like, she's all-knowing and all-powerful, so combat's not really where her mind is at. So to see her characterized as a warrior and to see that hunting down the enemy is her main quest is a really interesting take on the character. I am unsure if she is characterized like this in the Silmarillion. I have just read, I think, the first few chapters of the Silmarillion, so I am unsure how they depict Galadriel in her younger days, if they do. I know they cover a lot. So those of you that know, let me know down below. Is Galadriel very soldier-centric in the novels? Or is this something that's kind of like an original take that this show's doing? I also like how we see the distant relatives to the hobbits. We see all the Harfoots in the woods, and it's so cool to see them kind of like be one with the land. It shows very much the root of how the hobbits live. They live in isolation. They keep within themselves, and to see that their ancestors are of people that lived off the land, it just makes that much more sense. So I'm glad to see that the roots of the hobbits are portrayed pretty accurately to how they're described. The Harfoots are described in the novels. A lot of the shots in this show are very beautiful, especially if you're watching this on a 4K TV. A lot of the production design is top notch. You can tell what's practical and you can tell what's CGI, and that's one of the bad things about this show. You can tell when the CGI looks rough. And for the amount of money that has been said, that's been thrown at this production, I don't think there should be a rough shot at all in this entire thing. It's very interesting to be watching House of the Dragon and now Rings of Power, because we have these two medieval epic fantasy TV shows that are side by side. Large budgets are being given to these productions, so it's really cool to see them both now with 2 episodes out and to really compare them. And in terms of the production design, House of the Dragon looks a lot better in terms of the dragon CGI and some of the wide shots and the scenery. Here in Rings of Power, you see some of that roughness, and there was a couple of shots from the trailer that I saw that were like, ooh, that's a little bit rough, that were in the first 2 episodes, and I'm like, still looks pretty rough. So I hope they're saving that budget for the later battle scenes. I know there's still a Balrog to come, which I'm super excited to see that. I think if anything, I'm gonna stay on this show until I see that Balrog. But with that being said, I do hope the CGI gets better moving forward. Another thing the show does that kind of like throws me off at first is that they're introducing so much in the first couple episodes. I had to stop and count how many stories are we really following here, and I counted 4 different stories with 4 different characters, and I'm like, okay. You know, it's not like The Lord of the Rings didn't tell multiple stories with multiple characters going on at the same time. It did, but yet it was still contained. It was still all within one plot. I know this is all underneath the plot that Sauron is coming back, but everything seems so vast and different. Like, it's trying to cover multiple lands at the same time right off the bat, and it's a lot to chew for general audiences. Like, if you haven't seen The Lord of the Rings, or if you haven't read the books and this is your introduction to Middle Earth, you're throwing a lot, and you're like, okay, there's this character and there's this race, and then there's these characters, then there's that race, and then there's these characters, and it's like, okay, let's let's follow one thing at a time. And I can't help but notice that House of the Dragon is doing that a little bit better, because it's containing itself with one simple narrative. Who's the next heir? That's the whole show so far. In the first 2 episodes, that is the big question that drives the narrative. Who is going to be the next heir to the throne? But for here, you have mystery after mystery happening. We're wondering where Galadriel's gonna go. And we're wondering who's that dude that fell from the sky. Not trying to give too much away, but there's a lot going on in these first 2 episodes, so I can see a lot of people kind of like tuning out at the end of the first episode. It's like, okay, why should I care? Why are we here? But with that being said, I hope moving forward, when we get used to everyone and we're on track with everything, it gets better from here. Because I had the same feeling with The Sandman on Netflix. The first couple episodes was a lot to take in, character-wise and story-wise, and a little bit of the lore. All of it was a lot to take in at first, so I had to rewatch it a couple of times. And then when I continued on, the rest of the episodes are already there, right? So when I continued on, it got better, So I hope that's the case with this show. It's really hard to kind of judge a show when not all the episodes are out. I kind of wish they kind of did a Netflix thing where they just dropped everything all at once. But as of right now, those are my first thoughts on it. What do I rate these first 2 episodes? I have to give it a solid 3 out of 5 Skarsgårds. 3 out of 5. And if you're wondering, that is 6 out of 10 stars. So it's good. It's not bad. I love the craftsmanship that's going into it. Despite there being a couple of rough shots here and there, a lot of it is beautiful. Beautifully shot, beautifully composed. I mean, all the lighting is really awesome. Like, none of it seems off. Everything seems natural. And I just really, really love the production design. Everything that's practical stands out. And there's a whole scene with an orc in a cabin. I don't want to give too much away, but that whole scene felt like a horror movie, like a whole kind of Evil Dead slasher-esque, because kind of like how it's taken out is very horror slasher vibes. Yeah, that's and I was very pleasantly surprised to see that. I didn't expect that, and I think that was in episode 2, so I really like that. So there's like little bursts of like awesome moments in here. The fighting's top notch too, so a solid 3 out of 5 I think the first 2 episodes deserve. I hope it goes up from here. I hope it just doesn't lose itself midway through season 1. I hope it tells its solid story. I hope it leaves us hanging and wanting more for season 2. So that's what I hope for with this show. What did you think of the first 2 episodes? Let me know down below. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for reaching to the end of it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Support the channel. The rendered image is Show I host my good friends Tyler and Shannon. Link to the channel will be down below in the description, so go and check that out. Go over all the latest movie news, updates, and trailers. So it's always a fun time over there, so make sure to check that out. I hope you're all safe and well out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.